Welcome everyone to Buddha's Center. Wonderful evening to discuss Lama Tsongkhapa's Foundation of All Good Qualities, Source of All My Good, using Pabonka Rinpoche's very short but very clear and beautiful commentary that breaks this text down into 4 categories and shows us how we can traverse the various stages of the path in relation to the beings of 3 capacities, and how this poem relates to that process of going from wherever we are currently in terms of capacity or scope, when we're honest with ourselves and we use the mirror of the Dharma to assess our current state, to a state of complete Buddhahood. And we see that all of the stages of the path to enlightenment are contained within this beautiful 14-stanza poem. And by using commentaries and seeing how it relates to the great treatise in the stages of the path to enlightenment and the great treatise on the stage of the tantric path to enlightenment in a broader context, we're able to extract the incredible nectar that each of these stanzas contain and kind of unfold them or unpack them to know what their complete implicit meaning is. And knowing that complete implicit meaning will kind of show us what we need to do in order to practice the stages of the path to enlightenment without leaving out any details. And if we are not satisfied with any partial instructions, then we won't have any kind of partial ideas about paths that will inhibit us from being able to have a complete path that leads to that state of the abandonment of all negativities, where one has only perfect, excellent qualities. So we're here tonight to figure out what we have to do to get to Buddhahood, to assess our current state, see where we are in relation to the removal of the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience that we have when we're bound in cyclic existence, do an assessment of our current state, and then do an assessment of our current state in relation to their removal by looking at the mirror of the Dharma called the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. And we find that Lord Atisha says this quote at the beginning of the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment that's Tensor Geshe Wandak repeated over and over and over again, that says, understand there are persons of 3 capacities, small, medium, and great. I shall write clearly to identify their individual characteristics or to distinguish them from one another. And if we can distinguish them from one another, then we can see where we're at, where we need to go, how we need to get there, and get to Buddhahood in the quickest way possible. And we know the quickest way to Buddhahood is the tantric path, is the Vajrayana path. But without the foundation of the paths of the small and medium scope, or the teachings shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity, and then the teachings within the 4 beings of great capacity under the heading of the perfection vehicle, without those, Tantrayana, practicing Vajrayana, is a dream. It says in Meditation on Emptiness by Jeffrey Hopkins that during these degenerate times, everyone wants to practice Tantrayana. It seems like this is the go-to, that everyone wants to practice this. But Tantrayana is not for the degenerate. So we have to take a look at what that means and understand that it takes perfect ethics, and it takes our vows, and it takes to be clean, and us to really work with bodhicitta and have an understanding of emptiness in order for us to enter the tantric path, which is meant for bodhisattvas. And we even see the entrance of the mandala requires one to take the bodhisattva vow, and one gets the bodhisattva vow when one is an actual bodhisattva and has inspiring bodhicitta that we talked about in the stanza before the one that we're currently on about the 3 moralities. So without going any further, let's get started with what we always do. Get into the 7-point Vairakana posture that will allow for kind of a stable basis for our mind to be as clear as possible. It is said that there's a great connection between our mind and our body, and that our mind is kind of mounted on the subtle wind. And if we get into a posture that allows for the winds to flow very, very freely, and all of the, blood to flow in the best way possible, then we'll be able to sit for longer periods of time, because the physicality won't distract what we're trying to do with our mental consciousness. None of the sense consciousnesses will get in the way. And there's also a subtler aspect to this that will allow us to engage in meditative practice in a better fashion in the future. So the 7-point Vairakana posture is mentioned right at the beginning of the great treatise in the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment. We find it in Pabunka Rinpoche's Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. And it's a really great way to get into a position that we can then assess our clarity and calmness of mind. So let's get into the 7-point Vairakana posture. And as we always do, we're going to have a focal object that we're going to make sure our mind is kind of fixed on. When we look at meditation, there's 2 kinds of meditation: fixed meditation and analytical meditation. Here we're practicing fixed meditation, and then we get into a little analytical meditation when we do some of the glancing things that we do after the fixed meditation. We start to kind of analyze our kind of state and understanding of things. But before that, fixed meditation puts the mind on one focal object. As Lord Atisha says, place your mind on one virtuous focal object. So here, what we're going to do, because the Buddha suggested if we have problems with conceptuality to focus on the breath, we're going to use the meditation on focusing on the breath to calm our minds down, to kind of get rid of the overly conceptual state that our mind usually is in, thinking about this and that and moving around and going in all of these different places we don't tell it to go. So what we're trying to do with focusing on the breath, using that focal object, is calm our minds down, and while getting familiar with focusing on one thing, or in this case, a few things, but the things focusing on what we tell the mind to do is a better way to put it in this case. So we're going to tell our mind to focus on the breathing in and out and counting to try to help with our conceptuality, just to kind of calm ourselves down by using a neutral object, a calming neutral object. And then we're also, with our mental consciousness, if we're able to, we can skip this step if it becomes too much, and just use the breath, use the focus of the breath and the rounds of the breath. But if we are able to, also add the front generation form of Buddha Shakyamuni, beautiful, however you normally imagine him. But if you have other meditational deities that you normally use for fixed meditation for your calm abiding practice, please use those, because we don't want to shift objects when we're trying to gain shamatha. It says that we should really pick a focal object and use that over and over and over and over and over again, and call it to mind over and over again, so that we become really good at it, and our fixed meditation isn't jumping around before we're able to start the fire of single-pointed concentration. So we want to really pick that object. So whatever your focal object is in the front generation, if it is a different image of a Buddha, if it's something other than Buddha Shakyamuni like Tara, or if it's one of any among the 4 classes of tantric deities, whatever it is that you normally do, obviously that's fine. These are just suggestions. These are exercises that we're doing with each other in order to see what works for us, so that we have something to do when we go sit down on a meditation cushion and we aren't in class, and we can do these exercises. We can kind of do an investigation, kind of a self-operation, if you will, and see what things are conducive to our evolving or our maturing, because it's going to take quite a bit of removal of negativities in order for this evolution to take place. So we have to kind of operate on ourselves with these tools that the Buddha gave us. So one thing we need to be able to do if we want to see emptiness, which is the name of the game if we want to get out of samsara or become a Buddha, is get our minds calm enough and clear enough to be able to focus on something that's so subtle as the actual nature of reality. So here, these exercises that we're doing are exercises that if you continue to do, or get specific meditation instructions from your specific Lama on how to do them, if you continue to do instructions, you will find your mind getting clearer and clearer and able to be calmer and calmer. So this is a definite, but it takes persistence. It takes doing it over and over again. It takes, getting to a point where you think you're getting good at it and then failing miserably suddenly for a week because the kind of conditions in your life are making your mind more busy. And these are the acid tests that we have to use in our practice and be happy in some ways when we discover them, because it's like finding a treasure in some ways that we didn't know was there, because as soon as we remove that thing, more and more of the treasure of the Buddha nature that we have within us, the seed of perfection, will be able to manifest into that complete Buddhahood. So we get into the 7-point Vairocana posture. We're going to have the focal object of Buddha Shakyamuni or whatever image you choose, about an arm length away, thumb size, about eye height. Sometimes they say at the navel, but in this instruction, we say eye height. And we're going to tell our minds that's all we're going to focus on. We're not going to let them kind of be distracted and run around and, going scattering places or running to objects of desire through excitement. We're not going to let them get sleepy. We're going to kind of, with a spy of introspection, know we're looking out for things like this. And we're looking out for anything going on in the mind that isn't breathing in and out, counting in Buddha Shakyamuni. If introspection that spy in our mind catches our mind doing something other than it's supposed to be doing, mindfulness will grab the object back and bring it back to the focal point. And mindfulness is, is not forgetting the object of observation. I've told my mind the object of observation is breathing in and out, counting Buddha Shakyamuni. When something else occurs other than that, my mind isn't doing what I've told it to do. And the spy in my mind should be so aware, but in the background aware, that it's able to cue mindfulness in a way, send this cue kind of like in a radar, not yelling. It's not this large disturbance. It's just it's a correction that takes place. It's a catching. You'll see in the stages of meditation in that picture that Trijung Rinpoche drew, I believe, you'll see the hook of mindfulness, of grabbing the object of observation back. So anyway, this is how we should prepare. So before I go any further, and before we get into the meditation posture or give any more instructions, may I say, Lai ke dan lu dan no jin ke dru bum da dan mi ke nan dan ru wa gun ji dra na ji san ba dan je ke du da ji ju den do. In the language of the gods, nagas, and yaksas, in the language of demons and of humans too, and however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. I was being distracted by a magnificent storm that suddenly started to occur the minute that we turned on the teaching. It was quite amazing and miraculous. I wanted to say that right at the beginning of the teaching, but we have to recognize when we're supposed to do something and do it right then and there. And this is how our practice should be, spontaneous like this. When we're starting to be distracted or we're realizing we aren't doing exactly what we've told ourselves we're supposed to be doing, we can catch ourselves and make that turn towards the correct behavior. So this is what we do in our lives when we're being distracted and we're starting to find ourselves get off track and maybe gossiping. We catch it, we catch ourselves that mindfulness is that mirror of the Dharma that is like, I'm trying to abandon the 10 non-virtuous activities. Well, I also told myself, I want to begin the teaching with this beautiful quote from the Prayer of Noble Conduct. So as soon as introspection recognized in my mind, oh, you didn't do that, mindfulness said, oh, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And immediately I said, oh, I need to, the next thing I say needs to be this. So when we look at it in terms of our behavior, if we're gossiping, which is so easy to do, and we start to do that, when we notice that we're doing it, if the spy in our mind notices that we're doing it, then we stop, and then we try to, apply the 4 opponent powers, which then reinforces in our mind the next time for us to stop it, and hopefully it gets it to the point where the stopping won't be necessary because we just won't do it. And this is how we evolve. This is how we mature. So just another little snippet about how we apply these teachings in our daily lives and how we don't wait. It says, when a disturbing emotion arises, endangering myself and others, may I firmly face and avert it. If we really take that to its fullest extent, if I'm trying to begin a teaching with the proper motivation for all sentient beings, and I want to proclaim it and say it in such a way that everyone will be able to understand it, and if I've told myself that that's what I want to do, this is my motivation, then, it's endangering other sentient beings in some ways. If we want to look at mind training, by me not looking at how I can fully benefit them, I'm endangering them of not putting them in danger of not being fully benefited. So this is the kind of specificity that we can bring into our lives in terms of our behavior and how we think. And the only reason that we can have this kind of specificity is because of these incredible texts like the Lamrim Chemo and the Lojong texts, Geshe Chikawa's 7-point thought transformation, and Langri Tamba's 8 verses for mind training, and Nankapel's mind training like the rays of the sun, and Dharmarashita's wheel of sharp weapons. It's just amazing. And all of the commentaries that we have on these, that we can take these texts and then we can see how we apply them to our every kind of movement mentally and physically. And I hope that if anything comes from the teachings that I give, you see that these are, supposed to be something that we bring into our lives and we make alive in our own minds. Lama Tsongkhapa's words, these true words, becomes the truth of our mind and becomes how our minds operate. We don't rely on some external being to be able to cleanse us. We cleanse our minds by relying on great works and by relying on the truth that others have discovered themselves, by relying on the truth that Buddha Shakyamuni discovered and the ways to that truth. So we're so fortunate to know that our minds can evolve into a way of thinking that's just exactly in alignment with what we read at the end of the Lamrim Chemo in terms of how we perceive reality around us. And that's an incredible, incredible process. That's an incredible process that leads to a real result, leads to real benefit. So I just encourage everyone to continue to apply these teachings and see how the application of the most basic things helps one to evolve, helps one to see how to benefit others better, and then helps one to, because we need the ethics as the foundation, and putting others' needs before our own helps us to kind of beat up our self-centeredness. That kind of self-centeredness that needs to be beat down can be ultimately beat down by us seeing emptiness directly. But the two kind of help each other out. The emptiness helps us have more compassion, and the compassion for others starts to beat down our kind of centered idea and allows more room for the wisdom to realize emptiness. So we get into the 7-point Vairocana posture, and we'll breathe in and out and count and rely on the front generation form of Buddha Shakyamuni. And just for a few moments, let's try to get our minds calmed down, and not in a busy or dark, sleepy state. We're so fortunate that Buddha Shakyamuni came to this world almost 2,600 years ago to show us the truth of reality, to show us how to get rid of all of our suffering and to achieve complete bliss. It was because of his great compassion that we can achieve the state that he did. Because we have this mental consciousness that can mature to that state of perfection. This mental consciousness that is empty of inherent existence. Just like the Buddha's mental consciousness is empty of inherent existence, our mind is in the nature of clear light and unsullied. It isn't in the nature of being impure. The stains, the defilements, these are adventitious. These are something that is added, that our mental consciousness is saturated with, but our mind can be distilled back to this pure, clear light nature. We're so fortunate that we have the teachings that show us exactly how to do this. By relying on the stages of the path to enlightenment, we can become Buddhas in the quickest way possible, become the most reliable guides in the universe, and help all sentient beings. Now imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni is no longer in a static form. Imagine Buddha Shakyamuni becomes very animated and has been containing within this fixed form the entire merit field. And imagine there's just an explosion in the space in front of you from the bliss that Buddha Shakyamuni has experienced because of seeing us all engaging in the stages of the path that lead to Buddhahood. We see there's an explosion of the entire merit field that appears in the space in front of us. Imagining Buddha Shakyamuni and imagining His Holiness the Dalai Lama in the space in front of you, imagining Khenser Geshe Wandak, who was so kind to teach us for so many years, decades, teach us these stages of the path to enlightenment, word by word from the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment by Lama Tsongkhapa. We're so fortunate that we were able to be there. So many of us were able to be there for those teachings, and they're all captured on YouTube. And if you want to see those teachings on the great treatise on the stage of the path, to enlightenment, you can go back and see them going back to the early 2000s or maybe 2010 or 12, and on the Chen Rezik Tibetan Buddhist Center website. I encourage everyone to look at Khenser Geshe Wandak's teaching starting at the beginning of the Lam Rinpoche. I encourage everyone to go back to Rinpoche's younger days and check those teachings out, any of those that are on YouTube. We're so fortunate, those of us who were live with Khenser Geshe Wandak, and those of you who will just discover the teachings of Khenser Geshe Wandak on that YouTube page, Chen Rezik CTR. I encourage you all to check that out. So imagining Khenser Geshe Wandak, so happy that we've continued the teachings that he asked us to continue. Imagining Geshe Lobsang Gompo and Khenser Lobsang Gyatso and Geshe Gyatso, and remembering Demalocho Rinpoche and Geshe Dorje Damdu and Umzala Geshe Aga and Geshe Mala Tenzin Ladrin and Jeffrey Hopkins and Shadow Rinpoche and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, all these holy beings, any beings that you consider holy and consider enlightened beings, imagining them in the space in front of you. Now imagine all the beings from the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya and Asanga and Basu Bandhu and Dharma Kirti and Dignaga and Vimukta Sena and Hari Bhadra and Shakyapprabha and Gunaprabha and Salimpa and Atisha, imagining all the holy beings of the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri and Nagarjuna and Buddhapalita and Arya Deva and Shanti Deva and Chandrakirti, imagining all these holy beings, Baba Vega and Chandrashita and Kamala Shila, again, imagining Lama Salimpa and Lord Atisha, imagining all the beings of the lineage of blessings passed down from Vajradhara, Saraha, and Machipa and Tilopa and Naropa and Lotsawa Marpa and Milarepa and Gampopa, all these holy beings, imagining Lord Atisha passing down the Lamrim lineage to Drone Tompa, and imagining all the three old Kadampa lineages, the holy beings of the Nyingma lineages, Padmasambhava, Sakya lineage, Satya Kunga Nimpo and Sakya Pandita, imagining beings in the Kaju lineage, such as the Karmapas, imagining the Gulupa lineage, Lama Tsongkhapa, Kirtubje, Jelsubje, imagining Panchen Sanandrapa, Basu Chuji Jetson, Jayan Sheba, Janja Rupi George, Gunga, Janja Rupi Dorje, Gunjo Jimmy Wampo, 7th Dalai Lama, Jitsumpa, imagining Jetsun, Chuji Jetsun, all of these holy beings in the space in front of you. We're so blessed to be connected to their teachings. Now imagine the beings of the highest Yoga Tantra, Performance Tantra, and Action Tantra, all the 35 Buddhas in the space in front of you, imagining all the protector deities there in the space in front of you. We're so blessed to be connected to them. Now imagine that you bring all sentient beings here. As I said, in the language of the gods, Nagas, and Yaksas, in the language of demons and humans too, and however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the language and the Dharma of all sound. Now imagine that you connect with every single sentient being in the universe, because you will, when you're a Buddha, connect with every single sentient being in the universe. And it is that connection that will allow you to abide in bliss, and you will go from bliss to bliss to bliss. And that it is that connection that will allow you to be the most reliable guide in the universe. So now we're imagining that we're making this connection, and we know that when we're Buddhas, the only thing that we can really do for sentient beings is to figure out in skillful ways how to teach the truth of suchness to them, how to lead them to the truth of suchness, how to lead them to the abandonment of the self-cherishing attitude. And the only way that sentient beings can be freed of the negativities that everyone wants to be freed from. Everyone wants complete freedom from suffering. Everyone wants complete happiness. The only way sentient beings can have that, and all reliable guides know this, is for them to hear the Dharma in their own individual languages and their own individual scopes. And we imagine that we're bringing them here all to do that, so that we in our minds are starting to connect to the Bodhisattva path, which leads to Buddhahood, starting to make our minds work like, emulate the minds of holy beings, so that we become holy beings. So this is what we do. We try to emulate holy beings better and better and better. And this brings the momentum and makes the causes and conditions occur that give rise to the Bodhisattva path, and then give rise to the omniscient mind of the Buddha, with perfect wisdom, perfect love, perfect compassion, perfect skillful means, and perfect power. So this is why when we do this exercise where we calling all sentient beings, we do this in order to make our minds familiar with connecting to this idea of the object of observation of our love and compassion is all sentient beings. This extraordinary attitude that says, I'll take on myself the task of bringing all sentient beings to happiness and free a place where there's no more suffering. This object of observation is all sentient beings. If we look at what will ripen into bodhicitta, so we have to start practicing in this way. So when we look at the 7-point cause and effect for the mind that aspires to enlightenment, we're trying to, when we get to great compassion, love, the love through the force of attraction and great compassion, and when we look at equalizing, exchanging self with others, and we're looking at the giving and taking practice and Tonglen and so forth, we're eventually going to get to the point where the object of observation is all sentient beings, and we'll begin to be able to work with more and more of them along the Bodhisattva path as our abilities sharpen. So here, our abilities, my abilities, are not sharp, so I'm trying to sharpen them. If we have a dull knife, we can't just stand there. If we need to cut things that need precision, we need to start sharpening it. So this is why we start to create the process so that we'll be able to evolve into beings who's actually thinking, who actually 24/7 think, like these texts talk about. Think like the 8 verses from Training the Mind. Think like the 7-point thought transformation. think in these kind of, way out there ways compared to the way that, I think on a daily basis. But I believe because of the small, maturation that's taken place in my mind, that this larger maturation is possible, because the only way you get to the larger result is by, if we look at cause and effect, is by, creating the causes and conditions that lead to this results, because all results are dependent upon their causes. Suffering is dependent upon causes, and an omniscient mind is dependent upon causes. So what are you doing today in terms of causes? And this is what we ask ourselves. And when we do our practice, if we can connect with all sentient beings, Jeffrey Hopkins said, Kensei Laketon said that our virtue it multiplies or increases in relation to the number of sentient beings that we dedicate it to. And I analyzed that idea. Well, what could this mean? How are we somehow, helping them through some like shift of energy? I was really analyzing it, and I was thinking, well, by, connecting in this way, I'm creating the virtue to, that's going to need to be part of the collection to become a Buddha, to be the most reliable guide, which fulfills my needs and all sentient beings' needs. So it's interesting when you start to look at what this, truly means, and how when we do virtue in relation to more and more beings, that virtue increases, just like our happiness increases when we have this kind of relationship with other beings, and we can put their needs before our own. Our happiness increases in relation to the amount of beings that we can actually do that with. And that's why the Buddha is the happiest being in the world, happiest being on the planet. So just imagine that a Buddha can at this moment, emanate. We know that there's the Dharmakaya, and there's the natural truth body of the Dharmakaya and the wisdom truth body of the Dharmakaya. And then there's the Sambhokaya, or the enjoyment body. And this is the body that's in the, Ugmen, the Pure Land, Akanishta Pure Land, I believe it's Akanishta Pure Land, teaching the Arya Bodhisattvas in the beautiful form with all the 32 major marks and 80 minor marks. So the Buddha's emanating until everyone's a Buddha there. So the enjoyment body, because of the love and compassion that the wisdom truth body has, the omniscience of the Buddha, and the Bodhisattva path, has this love and compassion that's just, the mind of the Buddha, the omniscient mind of the Buddha. Part of that is, this caring for all sentient beings, this love and compassion for all sentient beings, and this omniscience, to connect with them and know where they are, and know how to help all sentient beings. So this is, what the Buddha is able to do with this kind of Dharmakaya, this wisdom truth body, this omniscient mind, can know that, there are Arya Bodhisattvas, and then this enjoyment body is produced, and there are sentient beings that need to be helped. And the Buddha, whenever there's a sentient being who has the condition to be connected to that Buddha, has a mirror to reflect an image, has the condition to be helped by that Buddha, the Buddha spontaneously sends the emanation body, this form body. Within form body, there's the enjoyment body and the emanation body. And the Buddha sends this emanation body in whatever form is necessary. So this is the wild part. It says, even if a sentient being needs a bridge to be helped. And we know that, what does that mean? Well, the Buddhas are trying to teach the truth of suchness. So we have to, always interpret things. The Buddha's coming here, but, when we look at the three moralities and we look at the ethics of helping sentient beings, we see that it talks about farming and stuff. So we have to know and learn about skillful means. You can't just walk around and shout about emptiness and shout about, stop your self-cherishing, especially around here, stop your self-cherishing. Let's talk about emptiness. So the Buddhas who know how to really help all sentient beings, know what each being's continuum needs, and then can emanate a body and in the most subtle ways we can't even begin to imagine, and help this person in the most subtle ways, meaning emanate this body, emanate this form that will then aid in this sentient being's evolution, aid in my evolution. So when we call out to the Buddhas, we know the Buddhas, and we make these supplications. We know that the Buddhas are omniscient, and these supplications are causing the conditions for us to be the mirror that can then have a reflection. That makes sense. So we need to be the mirror. We have to be the condition that allows for the Buddha to help us, and the Buddha will spontaneously do that if there is a condition present, because the Buddha operates under uncontaminated karma. Our karma is contaminated. Buddha works under the law of uncontaminated karma, but it's still, is, if in a way, bringing the Buddha, the karma, from bliss to bliss to bliss, from perfect wisdom to perfect wisdom to perfect wisdom. We're going from, all of these kind of into these, through all of these sullied emotional states because of our self-grasping ignorance and because of our self-cherishing attitude, at their coarse and subtle levels. In terms of the self-cherishing attitude at a subtle level is still left over once you get rid of the afflictive obstructions, and then the imprints of this, or the stains of these afflictive obstructions are still around, and those keep you from being able to be a Buddha. So once you get rid of all that stuff, then you can do this Buddha thing, this Buddha activity, where you have this Dharmakaya and Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya, or in English, if you have this truth body divided into natural truth body and wisdom truth body, and then enjoyment body, its own division, and then emanation body. And you can even further divide the natural truth body into two, but I won't do. I'll leave it where we are. So you've bring all sentient beings here. And these are just tips, on what we can do with our practice. And I hope these tips sessions, and that's what I'm starting to feel like they're, it's good to make them more like tip sessions, because no one in, one session here and there is going to be able to, without applying this in your own practice, to evolve. So with these tips, these single sessions aren't going to just make someone, unless you have some really strange previous imprints, it could happen where you could suddenly just realize something from these tips sessions, or these kind of like, extraction sections in terms of meaning. But these are for you to bring home and bring to your supermarket, bring to your job, bring wherever it is you go, and bring right before you go to bed to think about, so your entire night's sleep is virtuous. So we've been talking about meditation on emptiness, this incredible work by Jeffrey Hopkins, that everyone who seriously wants to study this topic and has tons of patience should own and read. And if you don't have tons of patience, you should have it anyway, because I had a hard time reading it when I first got it. And now I have a little more patience than I did then, 100% for sure. And now I read it and it's just so moving to me. So we've been talking about, how do you meditate on emptiness? What are you trying to do? What are some techniques? And so the first thing that's suggested, and it's interesting because it'll say, that this kind of investigation can go on for weeks or months. And this doesn't mean like every once in a while. Someone who's dedicated, and maybe even in retreat, doing the, 4 sessions or however many sessions a day, it's sometimes the retreats have 4 sessions. That's why we find later on in this text, the practice of the 4 times. But we'll talk about that when we get there. So this is when we talk about things occurring in weeks or months, this is for someone who's just really just doing this and only this and meditating on this. When it says, oh, you can, Pabunka Rinpoche says you can get shamatha and it'll take about 6 months. That means if you're in a dedicated retreat that you could actually sit in for 6 months without going crazy the first 24 hours. Your mind's already able to sit somewhere in retreat for 6 months. You're there. It's not like you could be totally unprepared and then be able to go into retreat for 6 months. You'd have to be tamed, So when we talk about these, you can do this in a few weeks, or you should do this in a few months, or you can get shamatha in 6 months. There's a whole lot of foundation that is expected, to be there. And you'll see so many folks who've tried to go into retreats way too before they should. And sometimes they come out just not well. And other times they come out like 2 days later. And not well can ring as really not well, depressed and mentally ill, but then also like not well, also thinking you've like had these realizations that you haven't had. And I've seen that train crash into a wall quite a few times. So just be really careful when you're doing these kinds of investigations, that you're prepared for them if you're doing them in a really, really intense way. And if you're not doing them in a tense way because you're not prepared to do them in an intense way, be patient with this evolution of understanding and take it kind of as it comes. So here we're talking about the I. We're saying to ourselves, before we get into any fancy investigation, we're sitting quietly and we're just trying to see how the I appears. We're not trying to make it, we're not saying, okay, we're just trying to get our minds calmed down. So we have to be able to calm our minds down to even do this. We're getting our minds kind of calmed down and we're waiting to kind of see, how the I appears. And we're going to recognize that we're start to see that, this I is kind of a self-sufficient thing that's just naturally there, fused with the appearance of the mind and the body. So we'll start to see that we feel this kind of concrete feeling without analysis. We aren't analyzing, oh, now we have this concrete feeling. We're just naturally seeing how we feel. So, permanent, unitary, and independent. How we feel like we have this kind of autonomous, substantial I over here without investigating. It just feels like that. Now I'm putting labels on it, so there's investigation. But those labels are what we're going to start to box with. But those labels are merely labeling how the I is really naturally appearing to us and how phenomena naturally appears to us as permanent, unitary, independent, as autonomous, substantial. I appear as this I that's kind of fused with mind and body. But then when I start to go beyond just this kind of appearance, and I start to, think about this I'll see that the I can start to appear when I'm starting to, analyze it in other ways as kind of the eye or the nose, or it sometimes appears like it's mental, or it appears like it's breathing. So this I naturally appears as all of these diverse things at times without analysis. It's just naturally coming up as all these things. I am this. And you're just noticing it. So you're watching this I. And this is the very, very, very beginning. So a lot of, awareness or mindfulness practice gets this kind of mixed up. It's my opinion, where you're just staying that you're looking at the naturally appearing I. So obviously you're planting a seed a little bit there. So it's, it's as natural as you can get it to appear, but you're just trying to get something to look at and know that that's something you're looking at. It appears so naturally a certain way. Okay, so I think this is making sense. So we talked about, okay, so then now we've got this thing that Tsongkhapa says the I, so I'll reread this again. Tsongkhapa's disciple, Tsongkhapa, see, I'm glad I reread it because I made a mistake. Tsongkhapa's disciple, Kirtip, says in his manual of instructions on the view, if the mind thinking I is not generated, you should fabricate the thought I and immediately thereafter analyze its mode of appearance. So then if you have to kind of fabricate it, and then you do fabricate it, then analyze how it's appearing to you. You will thereby come to know its mode of appearance without mixing it with any other object. If you look gently from a corner without losing the consciousness thinking I, there is a separate mode of appearance of I to the consciousness which thinks I, and this appearance is not any of the mental and physical aggregates. The I does not appear to be just a nominal designation, but appears to be self-established. Though through holding that the I exists the way it appears, you are bound in cyclic existence. So wow. So Kirtip J says, now the way that the I is naturally appearing to you, and now we're going to learn that it's appearing to you as permanent, unitary, and independent, and it's appearing to you as autonomous and substantially real. It's appearing to you to be inherently existent. It's appearing to you like this, even at the sensory level. Now you say, okay, this thing appears like this so much. Does appearance tally with reality? So we start to see if the way that we think everything is and the way everyone else thinks that everything is, because it's the way it appears to be, is true. And now we have to walk the line between true, meaning exists at all, or what we know we're finding the emptiness of when we study inherent existence. So we're finding that somehow these things that appear to be true, appear to be from their own side, when I say true, truly established, inherently existent, have self-characteristics. That appearance we'll begin to see doesn't tally with reality. And later on in the book, it says, once you do this business with the I, then the yogi turns his or her attention to external objects like a house and sees this kind of concrete house over there. And then you say, what kind of house would you be meaning? Well, the house that the yogi would point to when he or she was talking to someone else and say, that's a house over there. And then it says, then you start to see how that house appears as inherently existent. And then you start to see if appearances tally with reality. And then the yogi does it with hundreds of objects. Wow, so cool, right? So can the I appear to be self-established if its appearance is undifferentiable? And can the I appear to be self-established if its appearance is undifferentiatedly mixed with that of mind and body? It would seem logically impossible for it to be self-established and yet mixed. But the innate intellect apprehending I does not analyze its object logically before, during, or after its apprehension. It doesn't do the analysis. It's innate. This appearance, this belief is innate. The appearance of a self-established I is mixed with the appearance of factors of mind and body, but it is not exactly the same. The present senior tutor, Ling Rinpoche, who now has a reincarnation. We see how old this book, Ling Rinpoche was also one of Khyentse Geshe Wandok's teachers, said that if someone sticks a pin in your finger and you feel that pin has been stuck in you and not just in your finger, you have a distinct sense of the I that is hurt. So you can see that there doesn't seem to be this mixing it seems to be this kind of mixing, but then there's this separation when you go to think about it. So we're starting to see that the way that it's appearing, it isn't tallying with reality. There starts to be kind of a disconnect. You start to say, wait a second, where this I that's appearing to me, oh, it's substantially established. But then I say, wait a second, it seems to be fused with the mind and the body. But wait, I seem to be separating something now. So now we have to see if the I is one with or separate from the aggregates. And it says, in order to ascertain this appearance, it is extremely important to prolong subtle examination of it without letting it immediately disappear. Some teachers advise watching the I for a week or even months before proceeding to the second step. It's interesting to, in Buddhism, the appearance of a concrete I is analyzed, found to be non-existent, and overcome, resulting eventually in a direct realization of emptiness in which the subject, the wisdom consciousness, is merged with its object, emptiness, like fresh water poured into fresh water. Wow. And we'll leave it at that. Yeah, that's some very, very profound stuff there. And stuff you'll have to know in order to, whether you want to achieve an abiding nirvana, here a solitary realizer, Hinayana nirvana, or you want to have Buddhahood, the Mahayana vehicle, you have to know what that means. There is no, other kind of, or if you know a little bit of emptiness, a part of it, you can get, liberated partially. No, that you have to know the pure nature of reality that's presented in the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, and have to know what's implicitly taught in the second turning of the wheel of Dharma about the 5 paths, path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of preparation. I'm sorry, let me try that one more time. Path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, and path of no more learning. So we have to traverse those paths that include the Bodhisattva paths and the path of seeing and path of meditation in order to achieve the path of no more learning, or Buddhahood, Bodhisoha. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. And at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? So when we say 5 skandhas here, these are the 5 aggregates. These are the mental and physical things divided into 5 things that make us. One being physical form, and the other relating to consciousness. So if you're hearing the 5 aggregates, we were talking about, the mental and physical things that we merely label, according to the Prasangika view, as us. But this mere labeling, this mere designation by a thought consciousness, this mere labeling of this collection by a thought consciousness means that subjectively the I that is merely labeled exists conventionally. So that was a tongue twister. But again, the 5 aggregates are the mental and physical components of the person. It's the collection that is merely designated by a thought consciousness as the I. And that mere designation by a thought consciousness brings this person into existence. But there is no person that can be found that's separate from that nominal designation by a thought consciousness on a basis of designation. Okay, so we have to look at it in this way and see, when it says he saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature, what the skandhas are, what are being talked about. And we can talk later about what they're, more detail about the skandhas. So then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Those are the other five aggregates: form, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness. Sometimes form, feeling, discrimination, composition, I forget, formation and consciousness. I forget what the other one they call it, are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajnaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way: Teata om gate gate, paragate, parasangate, bodhisoha. 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 Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family. Thus it is, O son of noble family. Thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, the whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. So it's interesting that even an Arya Bodhisattva, until they're completed the 10th Bodhisattva ground and become a Buddha, when they're not in the direct perception of emptiness, things appear to be inherently existent, but they know better. So it's interesting how even after you have a direct perception of emptiness, path of seeing, and then the path of meditation, it occurs over and over and over again as you get rid of more and more subtle afflictions and get rid of the obstructions to omniscience, until all of the obstructions to omniscience are gone, until they're all completely gone. You still, when you're not directly perceiving emptiness, see everything as appearing as concrete and real as the I that we just brought up, that's naturally appearing to you in the beginning stage of your meditation. Yet this Arya Bodhisattva knows better and doesn't believe it in the least. It says this being will never believe it to be true again, even though it appears still to be so when they come out of the path, the path of release, after you're seeing emptiness directly. This being, if we're talking about the Mahayana path, this Bodhisattva is everything until they're Buddhas, still appearing as concrete as it does to me. And the belief lessens obviously before you see emptiness directly, but you never believing it again doesn't happen. I don't believe, maybe you could say it inferential, it's incontrovertible. But this idea where you've discovered something you've never discovered before directly causes such an impact on your mind that post-realization, that impact lingers and doesn't go away, it says. So the impact of this direct perception of emptiness is so, because it's never been known before. Now it's something that you know so much, it doesn't go away. So you know it about everything all the time, but it appears the way it always did. But you see it, as someone very close to me said, who has dealt with these meditations much, much more. It starts to be like a movie to you, in that your reaction isn't dumb enough to believe it's true, even if it's the most magnificent one created that sucked you in, almost like a dream so real. You're a lucid dreamer in a way. That makes sense. Not believing it for a moment, but then knowing how to use, like a great magician, dependent origination to create the illusory like experiences that you would like, that eventually will be the illusory like experience of Buddhahood. Aga samara jasandara samara be de ada on gate gate paragate parasangate buddhizo papa gojuji gaye de doji lobodoji mebodoji shewadoji dragi baje mede beje tanje jedingari zo ha gerin jaje jewada medone be den wada don badon jin bonzon doji dashi de janden da de lejo. Make a mandala offering. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sanje jadanza ji janan la janja bado danye jazu ji dagi ji ji bezanan ji jala benje sanje jubasho sanje jadanza ji janan la janja bado danye jazu ji dagi ji bezanan ji jala benje sanje jubasho sanje jadanza ji janan la janja bado danye jazu ji dagi ji bezanan ji jala benje sanje Whose by great compassion you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha, Gautama, I pay homage. And that verse is from the end of Nagarjuna's Mulya Madhyamika Karika, the fundamental treatise on the middle way. And this verse stanza we read called Departing from the Four Attachments by Sachen Konga Nimpo, who received this teaching, this stanza directly from Manjushri when he was a young boy. If you are attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. Okay. So those four stanzas, every time I read them, I find them so amazing that those four stanzas, cover the three principal paths. Those four stanzas cover the teachings for beings of three capacities. I pay homage to this stanza and Sachen Konga Nimpo and Jambayang Manjushri for being able to just put everything right there into one thing. And then I say thank you to Lama Tsongkhapa for allowing me to have some kind of glimpse into what those 4 lines mean in relation to the teaching shared in common with beings of small capacity, the teaching shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and the teachings for beings of great capacity. So tonight we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's Source of All My Good, the Yunten Shijoma, and we're looking specifically at the section where we get into the teachings for beings of great capacity, Jipo Chembo Lanji Rimba. So the teachings for beings of great capacity. But before we, get to the stanza, let's, as we always do, let's read the whole thing, and know that just as a guideline to our reading, we should always, try to enhance our ability to read. Our guideline to this reading, and then we'll go right to the stanza on the 3 moralities, is to see that the first stanza, according to Pabonka Rinpoche, deals with the very root of the path and how to take a lama and serve him or her properly. So that covers the first stanza. The second stanza begins all of this, and then a section on how to train your mind once you've taken a lama. Okay. So then this goes from stanza number 2 all the way to stanza number 12. Then the third section, according to Pabonka Rinpoche, is a request so that you can attain all the favorable conditions for succeeding in the path and stop the circumstances that might prevent you from doing so. So number 3, in terms of the outline, deals with stanza number 13. And then number 4, a prayer that in all your future lives you may be taken under the care of a lama and so gain the strength to reach the final end of the various levels and paths, deals with stanza number 14. So again, outline number 1, first stanza, outline number 2, second stanza, all the way to the 12th stanza, outline number 3, 13th stanza, outline number 4, 14th stanza. Okay, so this is how we would be able to kind of section out this. And of course, we have further sectioning that we've already done. But I'd like to always go back and see if we can think about it again, so we really bring it into our mind what the meaning of this is. So the source of all my good. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him with all my strength and reverence. Bless me to realize that the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I've died, the things I've done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddha's teachings. I have slipped and fallen into the sea of the suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, everyone my own mother, has fallen into. Grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough, for if I am not well trained in the 3 moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the Bodhisattva vows. Grant that I may quickly gain the path where quietude and insight join together, one which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects, the other which analyzes the perfect meaning in the correct way. Grant that once I practice well the path shared and become a vessel that is worthy, I enter with perfect ease the way of the diamond, highest of all ways, holiest door to come inside for the fortunate and good. I'm just going to stop right there. Remember what I said at the beginning of the teaching, that in these degenerate times, everybody's really interested in practicing Tantrayana, but Tantrayana is not for the degenerate. Grant that once I've practiced well, the paths shared and become a vessel that is worthy. One that's worthy is one full of virtue, one full of understanding of emptiness, one full of putting others' needs before your own. This is a vessel, this is a basis that then can, an appropriate, a vessel that's worthy to be able to take an initiation. It says, enter with perfect ease the way of the diamond. How do we enter into Tantrayana? The entrance, the door into Tantrayana is an initiation. The door into the Mahayana is bodhicitta. The door into Tantrayana is an initiation. If you have the path shared and become a vessel that is worthy, if you are not degenerate in your actions, in your behavior, in your conduct, in your studies, then you are a vessel that is worthy, that could enter with perfect ease into Tantrayana. And it says, and a vessel that is worthy is a bodhisattva. So when we take initiations, we have to understand that we're leaving imprints in our mind to connect with these teachings, so that when we actually can enter the mandala as a bodhisattva, we've prepared enough things to lead up to that result happening. So that's why we take initiations and have a facsimile of an initiation, so that it leaves an imprint in our mind, so that we can actually, when we're bodhisattvas, take that real initiation, maybe have a Buddha and emanate to us and give us that real initiation because of the initiations that we've taken in a contrived way as non-bodhisattvas that have been left as imprints in our mind. But we shouldn't get lost in this understanding and know that there's a big meaning in a vessel that is worthy. Bless me to know with genuine certainty that when I've entered thus, the cause that gives me both the high attainments is to keep my pledges and my vows most pure. Interesting, right there again. Grant me then always to keep them, even if it costs my life. Bless me next to realize as well as I can the crucial points of both the steps, the essence of the secret ways. Grant me then to practice as the holy ones have spoken, putting all my effort in and never leaving off the practice of the 4 times highest that there is. Grant me that the spiritual friend who shows me this good road and all my true companions in this quest live long and fruitful lives. Bless and grant me that the rain of obstacles, things within me or outside me that could stop me now and stop and end forever. In all my lives, may I never live apart from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path, and reach then quickly the place where I become myself, the one who holds the diamond. Okay, so now I'm going right to the section where we were on the 3 moralities. It stands, I should have counted, right? If I was really prepared. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Stanza number 8. Yeah, stanza number 8. We get into the 3 moralities. And we're looking at not only Pabunka Rinpoche's commentary in dealing with this, but we're also looking at Geshe Sonan Rinpoche's commentary on the Bodhisattva vow that I found to be really, really incredible. It's called the Shanchu Sembi Dumba Nishu Pa. Okay, so it's the Shanchu Sembi Dumba Nishupa. In English, it's the 20 verses on the Bodhisattva vow by Chandra Groman, and with some addition of Shanti Deva's compendium of training. And Geshe Sonan Rinpoche, who was a teacher at the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives, has an incredible amount of great books out. Wrote a commentary on the Bodhisattva vow, and in that we find incredible points made about the 3 moralities. So here we'll begin. So we talked about the first morality, the morality of abstaining from non-virtue, abstaining from negativity, and then the second morality, the morality of gathering virtue. And so now we're hold on a second. Yeah, so I want to give the titles proper: restraint from faulty action, accumulation of virtue, and working for others, or working for the needs of sentient beings. Okay, so let's get into that last section, because there's 11 categories of working for the needs of sentient beings, and I want to at least start reading it, because I keep saying we're going to get to it, and then I don't get to it. But I want to give the tips about meditation, and I think that tip about recognizing what your object of meditation is. What is your object of negation? It's an inherently existent I. The object of negation isn't the I's existence, it's the mode of existence. Just because it doesn't inherently exist the way it appears to us doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So we have to investigate by way of the 7-point analysis of the chariot and so forth, whether it exists the way it appears to us. So this is why I think it's important that we talk about this so we know how to meditate. Because that's not meditating really on emptiness. You're not meditating on emptiness until it's a non-affirming negative, which we'll talk about another time. These are all positive phenomenons we're meditating on. The first of the 11 ways to help others that bodhisattvas work for the good of others. So these are things we emulate, right? So that we can, later become bodhisattvas. If we can, don't take on more than you can and you'll have compassion fatigue or something. You do what you can within your scope. The first of these is to help others by assisting them in their activities, such as farming and business, providing this does not entail negativity. For instance, a bodhisattva, providing that it does not entail negativity. So you don't help them do bad, mischievous things with business. For instance, a bodhisattva may advise those who are trying to accumulate wealth and those who already have wealth on how to safeguard it, prevent it from declining, and how to use it well. Conflict mediation is included in the assistance bodhisattvas offer. So they're mediators. They give help and friendship to the sick by caring for them or by making provision for their treatment. And they assist travelers who are suffering from physical and mental problems to reach their destination. They learn to communicate with the deaf and teach them what is and is not constructive. These days, of course, there are motorized wheelchairs and many devices to help the disabled, but in the past, the bodhisattva would have to carry the sick or disabled person. The second, we see the reason this is emotional is we see that there were times on the way out of Tibet, some of these brave geshes were carrying their friends who were injured on their back, for just carrying them to get them to safety in India, so that they could then work so hard for the sake of all sentient beings and then bring this Dharma to us through so many trials and tribulations. Khyentse Rinpoche was so kind to share with me so many stories and just give me that oral tradition, and it really stuck. The second way of working for others is to advise those who are confused about what means to employ. For instance, this might involve helping those who are suffering as a result of negative actions to understand what gives rise to suffering and what acts for a cause of happiness. On the other hand, it may be quite simply be a matter of giving them practical and clear advice on mundane matters and suggesting steps by which to proceed. To do this, the bodhisattva must be able to understand and assess situations correctly. So we see why this is the last thing, this working for sentient beings needs, that the bodhisattva's focuses, because they aren't as skilled at it, because they haven't accumulated enough virtue, haven't progressed far enough along the path themselves to know exactly really what sentient beings need in order to help them evolve, in order to, work for them. So it says, in order to assess their situations correctly. The third way by which the bodhisattvas, so I'm going to go to read through 5. That's a good place. I feel good about 5. 5 paths, 5th way. And then we'll end there. The third way by which bodhisattvas work for others is by returning the help they have received in the past. Although we are not aware of it, all living beings have helped us in countless ways. Bodhisattvas behave in a friendly and welcoming manner to those whom they encounter, whether they know them or not. Even unasked, they provide or guide them to accommodation and food, and do what they can to look after their needs. The 4th way is to assist and protect those in fear. We all have rational, justified fears, but we also have many irrational fears. A bodhisattva provides protection from danger and tries to alleviate fear wherever possible. Although we may not find ourselves launching dramatic rescue operations to save people's lives, there are many opportunities to save creatures from being burned, drowned, carried off by the wind, or crushed by the earth. And we were talking about mindfulness. What is real mindfulness? Not forgetting the object, not forgetting what you're supposed to be doing. And we talked about Geshe Dorje Damdu's example of in your sink drain, there are, billions of beings, in there, okay? Thinking like there are these billions of beings. And if you pour scalding hot water down there, you could burn them all alive. But if you had this secondary pot that you could strain your spaghetti water, you're straining your spaghetti and the water goes into the secondary pot, you could leave this to cool and then you could pour that down the drain and it would be harm reduction. Some of you are thinking, are they drowning? Maybe they, we're trying to be mindful. We're trying to make every action that we do be not harming or benefiting sentient beings. So we're trying to do these things where we're being mindful of all of our activities and reminding ourselves about working for sentient beings, even when we're about to strain pasta, and we're doing the best that we can with these things. So this was one idea that Geshe Dorje Damdu mentioned, and I thought it was great, and I did it the other day, and I said, wow, look at this little simple thing, this, maybe it's even a trick that made my mind just snap to thinking about others and not just myself, that finds it much easier to not have this other pot in the sink. Mine's it much easier just to pour it down. But if my mindfulness is saying, wait, oh, that's right, my teacher said that there's beings in there who can be burned alive, I start to think about others and connect with others, and that's my only way to bliss, according to Buddha. So we're saving creatures from being burned. It's right here. And the fourth way to assist others and protect them from fear. I mean, it's all right here. All of these suggestions that we have in the oral tradition, they're all just right here. And they're just passed down from these lamas to students. And hopefully you'll share these with your students. The fifth way is to console those in grief. People suffer bereavement when parted from parents, partners, children, or spiritual teachers, either through distance or death. Since it is rare to find affectionate friends who can be trusted, their loss is hard to bear. The death of a dog or cat is often a great loss to someone living alone. People also grieve when they lose their wealth or property through natural calamities, war, or theft. Some lose it because they are careless, others by risking everything they have in hope of gaining more. The gambling. The Bodhisattva skillfully consoles and encourages the bereaved to think about the teachings, in particular, the impermanent nature of living beings, relationships, and possessions, often helping people to express their grief, and listening attentively gives them consolation. So you see here the skillful means is to teach the truth of suchness. Wow. So we'll end there at 5. I don't want to. I'd like to just go on and, on and on. But if you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, there is no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. And I have to try to be mindful of others' time. If I'm attached to my own self-interest, there's no bodhicitta. I want to keep going. You may need to do some things and have family obligations. And I told you I'd be done at a certain time. Mindfulness says, Jeff, you need to stop talking. So this is what we do, trying to give you like what we do in our lives. This is how we assess our situation. Prayer for the flourishing of Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings. Though he's the father producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's Dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. When in the presence of Buddha Indraketa, he made his vow, the conqueror and his offerings praised his powerful courage. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. That the lineage of pure view and pure conduct might spread, he offered a white crystal rosary to the sage. Realized teachings, white crystal rosary to the sage. My pages are mixed up, who gave him a conch and prophesied. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. His pure truth, pure view, free of eternity or destruction. His pure meditation, cleansed of dark fading and fog. His pure conduct, practiced according to the conqueror's orders. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Learned since he extensively sought out learning, reverend, rightly applying it to himself. Good, dedicating all for beings and doctrine. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scriptures, definitive and interpretive, were without contradiction. Advice for one person's practice. He stopped all misconduct. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Listening to the explanations of the three Pitakas, realized teachings, practice of the 3 highest higher trainings, His skilled and accomplished life story is amazing. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Outwardly calm and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting in the two stages practice. He allied without clash the two good paths of Sutra and Tantra. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle with great bliss achieved by method, the effect vehicle. Heart essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. By the power of the ocean of oath-bound doctrine protectors like the main guardians of the three beings paths, the quick-acting Lord Vaishravana Karmayana, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. In short, by the lasting of glorious gurus' lives, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverend holders, by the teaching and by the increase of power of its patrons, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular, the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I've made, may they be purified by this Vajrasattva recitation, imagining Vajrasattva inseparable from your root guru in the space in front of you, and imagining that white, red, and blue light rays and nectars are falling down, transforming into white homes, red ahs, blue homes, and showering down on you and all sentient beings and purifying your body, speech, and mind with the white om, red ah, and blue home, respectively. Om Benzasata Samayam and Abalai Benzasata Zeno Bajita Dida Meva, Sutogaya Meva, Subogaya Meva, Anurag Meva, Savazidi Meva, Savakam Suja Kitam Shiam Kurum, Ha, Bhagavan Savatakata, Benzama Memoka, Benzababa, Maha Samaya, Sapa, Ah, Home Fate. May we always be protected by Paul and Lamo. Jorama, 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 Jikalarajamo, Rama Jadaja, Jorama, 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 Jikalarajamo, Rama Jadaja, Jorama, 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 Jikalarajamo, Rama Jadaja, Jorama, 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 Jikalarajamo, Jorama, 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 Jikalarajamo, Jadaja, Jorama, 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 Jikalarajamo, Jadaja, Jorama, 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 Jikalarajamo, Rama Jadaja, Jorama, 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 Kalaraj. Any obstacles you have to meeting with the Dharma, may they be removed by the mantra of Drapusundri, the three wrathful protectors. Om Vajrapani Hayagriva Garuda Hom Ve. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well, with whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times. I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Long life prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama in that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains. You are the source of all benefit and happiness, all powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso. May you stay until samsara's end. And a prayer of supplication to Namgyal Khenser Geshe Wandak. The prayer was written, I have it, on March 6, 2023, 1 year after Rinpoche's passing, by Jeff Allen, by myself. A complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khenser Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Om Ahom. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like a teacher who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of three capacities. Now that sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all teachers passed away. All your teachers passed away and understood the sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away our negativities, the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. Sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who you really are. And it's so important, this correct view of emptiness. We have to know what the object of negation is. Lama Tsongkhapa spent so much time on it. Rinpoche spent so much time on it. And the object of negation isn't an existent I, it's an inherently existent I. It is an existent phenomena other than I. It is an inherently existent phenomena. So when we look at, the self of person and self of phenomena, the object of negation is an inherently existent those things and not an existent those things. So that's why I spent so much time in the beginning of class on looking at how it appears in such a way, and then that's how we begin our meditation to work at an object of negation. All right, thank you, everybody. Have a great night. I hope your mind is virtuous. See you on Sunday morning, 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. Lama Tsongkhapa's Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment, the Lam Nim Chamo. Thanks.